Hi, Mark Phillips here. Welcome to another video wine blog. This is show number 3 in the 3-part series of Understanding Wine. The first show was on categorizing wine. The second show was on the body of wine. And today's show is on wine's complexity. What makes a good wine? What is everyone dreaming about in the wine world? And its complexity. So, in the wine world, there's simple wines, guzzling wines like box wine, 2-buck chucks, yellowtail. These wines aren't serious. They're just meant, they're inexpensive wine, supposedly pleasant tasting, and they're fruity with one dimension to it. Just kind of like grape juice with alcohol. And they're meant for guzzling while you play quarters, doing shots, whatever. Just drinking, slamming them down. Guzzling wines. That's the far continuum. On the other end is a wine that's complex, where the flavors are integrated, where you drink it and it stops you in your tracks because there's so much happening in your mouth. You're going, wow. Like when you have a great bite of food at a wonderful restaurant for a great dish. The flavors, there's so many flavors that are going on right there. It goes, wow, you don't want to swallow it. You just want to chew it as long as possible and let those flavors open up and experience everything. And in a wine, the same thing happens. And it happens in the aroma. By the length of the aroma, it goes up into your nose and kind of opens up in your head. And then when you put the wine in your mouth, all these flavors are going in your mouth and going, wow, that's amazing. That's the other end. That's the ultimate. That's the pinnacle in wine, a complex wine. And although all grape varieties can make a complex wine, you can have a complex Chardonnay or Shiraz or Cabernet, etc. There are certain wines that are known in the world for being, they can get more complex, complexier. And the big debate's always been in the wine geek world, are you a Bordeaux person or a Burgundy person? Kind of like Republican or Democrat, whatever. And the issue is a Bordeaux, the greatest Bordeauxs, are they more complex than the greatest Burgundy? No is the answer in my opinion. I'm a Burgundy guy. And I think, generally speaking, the holy grail in wine for complexity is red Burgundy. Red Burgundy at its best cannot be beat. But it costs a mint. You never get it. Boy. It's just, I guess if you're buying expensive Burgundy all the time, you'll experience that more often. But for most of us, it's like once every, years that you get a Burgundy that is at its peak and is really a great wine that's complex. It's and they're so expensive. It's a rich man's game when you're buying red Burgundy. So now, that's the key. It's again a continuum. So a lot of wines fall in between, from the guzzling wines to the greatest wines of all time. It's in between, and so you kind of figure out where a wine falls into that and how to predict that. Most wines are meant to be consumed in the first 2 years or so, or 3 years of when they're made. They're not meant to age. A wine cannot develop complexity when it's young. Complexity takes time. So it's hard to buy a wine off the shelf and get a complex wine unless the wine shop happens to have older vintages where that wine has developed. Otherwise, for really complex wines, you have to buy the wine and age it yourself. In a restaurant, you'll see older vintages of wines. They cost a lot, but that's where you find older vintages in restaurants. Not too often in stores, but some stores do. It depends on the store you go to. And just because wines have to age to become more complex doesn't mean an older wine is complex. Because wines can age, but they don't have the breeding of sorts, the constitution to age and become more complex, become better and complex. If the fruit's not good enough, a Sutter Home Cabernet that costs, $5 a bottle, if you age that wine, yes, it will change, but probably not for the better. So older wines by definition aren't more complex. It just depends on the wine. But also, complex wines can't be young wines. So, it's not conversely or related in a way. Whatever that means. So that's the thing. You have to know what kind of wines you're doing, for wines that are meant to age. Whites can age. A lot of white wines can age and can be really good. But good to whom? Here's a story. When I was in D.C., I was in a wine shop and a guy walks in for his 40th anniversary. He's elated. He loves his wife. He's so excited. He's got a ton of money in his hand. The couple drank Bordeaux day in and day out, but inexpensive Bordeaux Superior, inexpensive Bordeaux. $15 a bottle, something like that. So, but he's had a great Bordeaux before, so he wants a great Bordeaux because the wife's making a great dinner at home. He's in charge of the wine, and he's got a lot of money ready to spend big money on wine for an older Bordeaux that's at its peak and has developed complexity. And there's no limit, really, on the money he's going to spend for that. So he asked the guy, I love red Bordeaux. I'm here to get a great Bordeaux at its peak. The guy pulls off a Bordeaux, happens to be 10 years old, that seems to be at its peak, and says, here, take this one. And it was $250 for the wine. And you can see the guy balked a little bit. Is his wife worth $250? But he went for it. So he takes the wine home. The next day he comes back. Livid, his veins are popping out of his neck. He's just so angry because why the hell did you sell me this wine? This wine tastes terrible. It ruined our anniversary dinner. And the salesperson says, what? Wait, come on, no, that wine should be great. And the guy brought the wine back. Only about one glass of wine was out of the bottle. The wine's still there. They didn't really like it at all. They didn't drink it. So the salesperson tries the wine, he tastes it and goes, wow, it's orgasmic, it's perfect. It's complex and at its peak and everything's integrated. The difference is, the old guy, well, older, 40 years in, the older guy never had older wine before. And older wine is completely different than what you drink usually. And so if you don't know you like older wine, then don't spend the money on it. Because you may not like this guy with the anniversary. He went for the big money, but it tastes nothing like what he expected it to taste like. And it's so different. An older wine loses its fruitiness. And it becomes really lacking almost. It should have fruit, but really the point of an old wine is the complexity. Over time, the flavors integrate in the bottle. And that's what you're looking for in older wine, that integration of flavor, not fruitiness. And so you taste an older wine, and the guy goes, what's this? There's no fruit to it. It tastes like nothing. And so, you can't, just go out and spend money on wine thinking you'll like it. Certainly, we should all know by now that price and the quality of wine do not relate to each other. And especially if it's older wine, because it changes flavor profile completely from when it's younger. So if you learn to appreciate older wines, that's what you go for. And that's why all these people have these huge wine cellars. Not for younger stuff. It's so they can age wines to get to a point where you never can taste that complexity and integration of flavors in a younger wine. And because most wine shops don't hold on to wines very long, you have to do it yourself. So, wines that are meant to age usually are, more expensive. Above 20. Yes, I've had wines that cost like $10 and had them when they're 5 or 6 years old and they're really good, which you wouldn't expect in a way sometimes. But generally speaking, the more expensive the wines are the ones that are meant to age. The winemaker makes them to age. So the younger ones are meant to be consumed right now. So if you have wines that are less expensive, generally that means drink them now. Don't age them. You can always take a chance. Why not if you want to? And the wines that are more expensive are often meant to age. Now, a more expensive wine can taste good right now, but why would you spend the money on an expensive bottle of wine and drink it young? Because it won't be showing its potential. You're wasting money. Expensive wines that cost, I don't know, $50, $80, $100 or more a bottle that are consumed young are really not much better than a wine that costs $20 a bottle and might have 2 or 3 years of age on it. It'll be pretty close. That expensive wine really doesn't show its potential until it ages for a while. So, it's a tough thing. So when you go into a wine shop and looking about buying a wine, you let the person know what kind of wine are you looking for. A wine to be consumed right now, and then also go to the category of wines, old world or new world style or international style, and the body of wine. All three things are good information to let a salesperson know, or a sommelier, or a wine or waiter, whatever, at a restaurant, to know what kind of wine you're looking for. Because if you're trying to buy an older wine, a smart sommelier or a salesperson asks you, have you had older wine before? What have you had? So they can kind of screen to know, should you be buying older wine if you really don't know what it tastes like? But once you learn more about wine and learn to appreciate wine, you'll want those older wines, because that's where it all happens. That's what turned me on when I first got into wine. When I had older wine, I thought, wow, woo, unbelievable. So if you're just kind of so-so about wine, I guess, to really get fired up about wine, it's got to come from wines that just knock your socks off. Maybe for you it might be younger wines just because they have a really great flavor to them. That's good. That's fine. But the older ones that have the flavors integrated and are really complex, that's the key. All right, that's all I have for today on the complexity of wine. See ya.